Well, good Thursday morning to everyone. I'm glad everybody could make it. I see that we have three people in the class. So, what are we going to talk about today uh, with our Encompass class virtual? We're going to talk about R600. Okay, we're going to start with you know kind of here is the hydrocarbon refrigerants. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a little bit more. We're going to go a little bit more in depth. The first thing that I want to go and go over with you this morning is some of the classes that are coming up on Encompass at the university. So give me just a second. I'm going to go share screen, and we got Encompass University. Okay, so if you're down in the Miami Davie, Florida area, there is a class tomorrow for GE refrigerator and dishwasher training. Okay, diagnostics and training with the Smart HQ app. I am in process of getting a Smart HQ app delivered to me, and then we're gonna have a class on it also. Okay. Then there on the 12th through the 15th, there's a 4-day training on seal system hands-on. This comprises of both regular using a torch and R600. Okay. Then we have in Louisville, Texas, we have the Medea refrigeration and PTAC. My little Portac AC units. Okay, that is going to be on the 13th of May there at Spinks Road at the training center in Spinks Road. So if you have any questions and you need anything and you don't know where it is, just give me a shout out, and I'll do what I can to help you out. Then, if we look on down, May 23rd, we have the Medea refrigeration and PTAC again. That's going to be at the Lawrenceville location. Once again, that's on May 23rd. I'm seeing about going to that to see if I can spend a day and learn a little bit more about it myself. And then we'll have a class later on with that PTAC. Okay. Then as you go through, we're going to get down to, June classes. Let's see, four-day training, June 9th through the 12th. Okay. That is a pay class. It is $975, but you get your money's worth. They have to cover the instructor and the food and everything else that they're going to use. So that's once again, that is June 9th through the 12th. That is both R600 and Torch. Then we have a 2-day training, which is just the LokRing seal system hands-on. This gets you certified for LokRing. So that is also in Lawrenceville. That's on June 11th and 12th. Okay. Let's see. And that looks like what we have right now for the June time frame. Angela, the May and the June time frame. Okay, so I'm going to keep on going. I want to show you a little short video. I've been looking for something for a video, and I actually found it. So I am going to go ahead and run this for you. And this is just a short explanation, kind of the way things were and the way things have gone. Hang on just a second. I got to go back because I closed it out. Here we go, right here. There it is right there. Okay. So let me share this, and then we're going to teach you a little bit more. Here we go. You ready?
we were talking about fridges that could explode, I made an offhanded remark about you have more of a chance of getting hit in the head with a meteor than having your fridge explode. Well, come to find out, that comment was wrong, and we want to correct it today. The reality is there's only ever been one person that's been hit by a meteor, and that was in 1954, and she actually survived it. But there have been apparently numerous cases of fridges exploding. In fact, the numbers seem like they're starting to grow as far as the amount of times that this happens. So we want to talk about how it can happen and why. So the reason that we're starting to see issues around fridges exploding is because of a change that was made. Manufacturers over the years have changed the type of refrigerant that they're using in the refrigerator. If you go back about 30 years ago, refrigerators were using a refrigerant called R12. Then, because of environmental issues, they moved over to another one called R134. In today's world, they've actually made a change in order to protect the environment even further, and they moved over to a refrigerant called R600. Now, those previous refrigerants, while harmful to the environment, would not catch fire. The new refrigerant, unfortunately, has the ability to catch fire and can explode if it's confined in a small space. So the question is, it's great to be saving the environment, but why would we put ourselves at risk of potentially using something that could catch fire or explode? That large fridge, 30 years ago, used a refrigerant that required 28 ounces of refrigerant that was harmful to the environment. Then they made another change and they went to another refrigerant in which a fridge that size would only use about 5 ounces compared to 28 ounces. So when you look at today's new fridge with the new refrigerant, it only uses 1.5 ounces in order to do the job. So this refrigerant contains isobutane, which is flammable. So you now have a refrigerant that has a component that can catch fire and explode if it's in a confined space. And how does that happen? Well, we're going to show you. So if we were to look at this refrigerator, take out the back wall where you can see the evaporator, because it's the evaporator section that's going to be the issue. So when looking at the evaporator, as the gas is moving through, if for some reason there happens to be a leak in this evaporator, and that gas can escape inside this refrigerator, and if the doors are all closed up, that gas can start to build up. And for some reason there's an ignition source, which can be anything from a set of contacts for a thermostat closing or opening, it's going to ignite that gas, and it's going to, as it ignites, create a huge amount of pressure, and you're going to get that explosion. Every year in the US, there's 10 million fridges sold. And the amount of cases that we're seeing as being a problem are very, very slight. So can it happen? Yes. Do you need to worry about it? No. Is there anything you can do as an individual to make sure it doesn't happen? Not really. It's happening because there's been a flaw in material or in the way it got put together. But those cases are going to be extremely rare. So there you go. I think we've been able to establish that you really do not need this kind of equipment in order to get something out of your refrigerator.
All right. So that kind of gives you a little synopsis. One of the things that I have told everybody whenever I first started was you have to be super careful with R600. Like he said, it is a derivative of butane. Okay, it is basically, how much does it? You saw right there that's it's not a huge amount mostly in refrigerators compared to what it used to be with R600. With R134A and R12. I actually am one of the old people that actually had R12 that we worked on. And whenever I very first started, it wasn't a huge thing. And then as soon as the EPA realized what it was doing to the environment, we now have classes, and you have to be able to recover. We had to recover it, just like you have your class on it today. So we're going to go through and talk about hydrocarbon refrigerants. Okay. So, excuse me. We're gonna kind of go past this because this is what I use whenever I also am teaching in person. So here we go. 1900s. they used HCs, which is hydrocarbons. Okay. Then in the 1930s, they used CFCs. Okay. It's non-flammable because in the 1900s, the stuff was actually flammable. I wish that I still had somebody threw away my grandfather's old Frigidaire refrigerator. Okay. As a matter of fact, back until then, a lot of the times it was called a fridge from Frigidaire. So this was the one that he had actually was ammonia. It had an ammonia was what the charge was. So in the 1930s, they developed CFCs. That was a non-flammable refrigerant. And then the HCs, the hydrocarbons, were reduced. Okay. Then in the 1970s, that's whenever they discovered this ozone depletion. Okay. That's in the late 70s is whenever you had to have certification to be able to recover the refrigerant, because they had found that people were not recovering it properly, and it was leading to issues. So that was in the 1970s. In the 1980s, they started using hydrofluorocarbons, and hydrocarbons started to replace the CFCs. Then later on, we got to 2000. We got some ice cream cabinets that were overseas that were using HCs again. Okay, hydrocarbon. So we made a loop. Okay, in the 1900s we were using hydrocarbons. Okay, we've got to the 2000s and up to today. Guess what? We're using hydrocarbons again. Okay, so for 2005, over 50,000 of these HC cabinets, these hydrocarbon cabinets, were in use in Europe. They found out that they were looking pretty well, and they advanced, and everything started 2020. They had over 50 million of those appliances were in use worldwide. Okay, here's kind of the layout of what they had talked about. R12, which is a CFC. The ozone depletion rating is 1. Okay. Then on R134A, it's a HFC, a hydrofluorocarbon. That was ozone depletion was 0. Then you get to R600 on down. Once again, that's a hydrocarbon, and its ozone depletion rate is 0. Now we're headed probably to go get down to a new derivative, is what I've heard, and we're going to see how that happens. I'm not sure that is going to actually fly at the end, but we're going to find. So let's look at it, looking at the scale here. So if you look, there's 2016 is the first scale that started, and we were at about 90% in 2019. So then that was today. Then we're going to drop down to the timeline. We're going to drop down using R600 to the 1200 GWP. Then on 2029, we're going to go down to 600 GWP. As we step down, they're trying to invent or use newer technology on a spin on a lot of the older technology, just to see if they can get it so that we can get it down so that we're not depleting the ozone. Okay, so once again, here's R132. This is flammable refrigerants. This is an A3 is R600, and it doesn't require you to recover it. But as you saw in that video, here's the problem. What the video was, I tried to find the video that I used to have, but I can't find it. And it was actually from GE, and there was two engineers. They had taken this out into a field on the GE compound, and they actually they showed a technician, not a technician, but they showed an ignition point for like a torch, and how it could cause an explosion or burn the house down. And that actually is what I was looking for, but it's gone now. So we are looking at actually what problems have happened. So the three things that I have got to have, okay, to have a flame, okay, I need fuel, I need air, and I need an ignition source. Okay, of course, the fuel is R600. The air is your regular oxygen that's in the excuse me, that's in the air. My ignition point can be any number of things. Okay, he mentioned contacts. It's not even just contacts. If I take and vent this just out into the excuse me, out into the kitchen, I run the risk of having a flash fire, and if I'm not really careful, I'm going to have a sustained fire. If I don't have my fire extinguisher right there with me, I could have a sustained fire. If it can get to a point where that it gets so hot that it's going to just explode. I actually was talking to a technician about I don't know, about 2 months ago, and he was telling me that he had at their shop they had a brand new guy. The guy was unfamiliar with R600. He was a newbie, is what we always called everybody. If you were a new technician, you were a newbie. And we used to kind of mess with him a little bit. We'd tell him to go get the left-handed smoke bender and crazy stuff like that, just to mess with him. But the problem is this technician had no idea what he was doing. So the guy told him, "Hey, stop, don't do anything. I will be back in just a minute. I've got to go get all the proper equipment so that we're prepared if something were to happen." So what happened? Well, the guys had about 6 refrigerators lined up. Well, this kid thought that he was just going to vent it all into the air. Well, it kind of at the shop. Well, needless to say, that was not a good thing to do, even though that thing holds, basically 5 ounces, somewhere between 5 and 10 ounces, depending on the refrigerator, the company that made it, all that other stuff. You gotta make sure that you're not careful. You gotta have to be super careful. He wasn't. Luckily, he escaped with minor burns, because whenever he cut open the last one, the others ignited, and whenever they ignited, they had an explosion. It literally, the technician was telling me, it almost burned everything to the ground. So that's why you have got to have and take super good precautions on flammability issues. Okay, so here's our lower flammability levels, and then our upper flammability levels. That's an LFL and a UFL. Okay, 290 is in R600. Their flammability level is 1.8. Their upper level is 290 and 600. That's at that it's 8.5. Okay, so who regulates everything? The things that we need to be concerned about in the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, National Fire Protection Association, Underwriters Laboratories, International Organization for Standardization, that's the ISO, Then we have the International Electrotechnical Commission, which is the IEC, and then the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. Okay, that's who kind of helps us as a technician. Excuse me. So every refrigerant, every time that you go onto a refrigerator and you see that it has 600A on it, it should have various stickers that are on it. The one on the top is one of the ones that is definitely got to be down by the compressor area. And it simply states danger, risk of explosion, flammable refrigerant used. Do not use mechanical devices to defrost the refrigerator, and do not puncture the refrigeration tubing. Okay, so it's all laying out there. There's another one out there, and it's a triangle. I'll show it to you. That's later on the presentation. That one should also be there. All of these are required. If you do not have one of these stickers, you're supposed to put one on it. Okay. We all know that there are technicians and there are customers that will take and remove this, but it can't be removed. And if you see that it was removed, you have to tell the customer, Mrs. Jones, you have got to leave this on. You can't clean it off. You can't wipe it off with anything but like Dawn liquid, and yet because it will cause the ink to run, and you can't have it run. It's got to be down. It's got to be there so that it's just it's a required warning that has to be on the unit itself. Okay, we can't retrofit. Okay, all labels have got to match and meet the UL specifications, and that UL specification is this one right here that has this danger on it. Okay, so what is in my refrigerator? What does the model serial plate tell me? You know, of course, it tells me my model number, my serial number. It also tells me that I have R600 in this unit. And it also tells me how many, in here it's grams, not ounces, how many grams are used of this refrigerant. It will tell me my operating, how many amps it will pull. It will tell me what the heater amperage is. There's all kinds of great information out here. If I have any questions on the other side, this is on an Electrolux 4-door refrigerator that I own. And it gives me, my electrolux.com, my 800 number. If I have any questions, if I'm on a call and it's supposed to be a warranty call, and I get out there and I have any questions, I can call this 877 number, and they can actually tell me if the customer has submitted a warranty card. You've got to have a warranty card submitted. You can do those online now, but you still have to have that warranty card going through, because what happens is a lot of the times your stock, you're like, I used to work for Circuit City and Best Buy. Both of those I worked for. And, my stock is the actual box itself. I can hold that stock for about 2 years. And I have seen them go into a customer's house, deliver a refrigerator, being a technician. And this thing was, out of warranty, because if you look at if you're able to read the serial number, your warranty label will tell me when this was manufactured. That doesn't mean that that's when it was installed. So mine was 2 years old. So I'm like, oh man, this is not under warranty. So I called the office and said, hey, I got this unit and it's not under warranty. Well, they looked it up and they go, yeah, it was. the customer submitted the warranty card, it was delivered on this date. Things have gotten a whole lot better whenever it's delivered now. They actually some of the centers now, whenever they scan the unit and charge that unit out, they'll put the date that it was installed. So that also helps you. Okay. So here are the people that kind of all work on it. AHAM, everybody is familiar with. That's the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers. Okay. Some of the recommended practices for R600. If I'm going out on a call and I know that I have R600, two things. Okay. If I'm carrying R600 in my truck, I have got to have the correct, what am I looking at? My dry powder fire extinguisher. I'll get it out in a minute. I was trying to say that and couldn't get it. That's required for transportation. Okay. If I am moving any R600, I have got to have that. Okay. But I keep mine was I could just lift off. So whenever I'm going into the house, two of the things that I carry are right here. Okay. One is a combustible leak detector. Okay. I can do that and check it just to make sure, just to see if I find a leak. That also will help me whenever I'm sitting there and I'm working on this. I have a combustible leak detector going. I have a dry powder fire extinguisher right there at me, so that within easy reach. The other thing that I keep is on my tool pack. Whenever I ordered my drills, that has the 5 drill pack, it came with a little fan. So that was great because now I can use it and just shove the battery into this little fan, turn it on, and I keep the air moving so that I don't have it just sitting there. But you got to be sure that you have a flow of air so that we don't have a buildup of R600. Okay, you're going to have to use a tubing cutter. No torches. If you use a torch on an R600 unit, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. I subscribe to a couple of little message boards, and what they actually, I have seen pictures of guys that were just, the hands were just destroyed because they had an ignition and they were using a torch. You can't use a torch with R600. You're just going to have problems sooner or later. I guarantee you. We had somebody that I was talking to that had they had caused a fire in the customer's house. It wasn't a big fire, but it doesn't matter. What does that say about your reputation if you're out there and you have a fire? I'm gonna lose a whole lot of clients because, as everybody knows, you got your client. If you do a good job, they're going to tell one, maybe two people. If I do a bad job, they're going to tell everybody I know. With social media the way that is today, it's not just your general area, maybe one or two people that they talk to, maybe 10 people they talk to. It's now broadcast out there. So what am I going to do to overcome that issue? Yeah, you almost can't. Okay, so my ignition sources. The guy had kind of touched on that. Okay, any kind of materials, cigarettes, candles, anything that actually has an open flame. Okay, it could be a match, a toaster, a range, a washer, a dryer, anything that has contacts in it. Okay, Our new things are not built for contactless issues. Okay, torches are a spark, any kind of spark, which is a match. Mine was, I never used a match to light my torch. I always had a cigarette lighter that I lit my torch with. Don't smoke, but that's what I always carried, a cigarette lighter in my pocket. Okay. Overlooked ignition sources. So my vacuum pump, if it's not a brushless vacuum pump, guess what? There's a spark. Recovery equipment, same thing. If it's got to be brushless, or else I have the potential of causing a fire because of this R600. Okay, timers, switches, contactors, the light switch when you turn the light on, that can cause an explosion. Static electricity, we don't ever think about that. It's not, now that we're getting into the spring and summer, that's a whole lot less likely to happen. But I mean, think about it, in the wintertime, that used to be the big joke. Whenever I was at work working for Best Buy, somebody had run their feet across the floor and then walk up behind somebody and tap their ear, and of course you get that static electricity in it, and bam, right there is your ignition point. Okay. Now, for leak detection and line repair, okay, I'm going to always use a tubing cutter to remove any components. Tape, I'm going to use either a soap bubble or a certified leak detector. Once again, I can use, that's the reason that I use that other, like I said, there was basically three things that I always carried with me. One was a fan, one was a extinguisher, and then my leak detector. So if I've got that, that's all I need. I can always go back to soap bubbles. I can usually find it with the leak detector. If I can't find it with the leak detector, I can go get my bottle of soap bubbles. And I don't know if people still use it like I used to. I had a little bottle that had a little dopper on it, and I would dop it around and make sure that I had my leaks were good. I had no leaks. If I'm going to try to find a leak and I can't find it, only use that dry nitrogen. Do not use anything else. We used to, if you had to, you could jack it up with refrigerant, but that was always expensive and it was never a good thing. But whenever I'm checking, I want to make sure that I'm just going to use dry nitrogen. Okay, I'm going to constantly monitor for a flammable environment. That's why I was telling you what happens whenever I'm down there working on it. My leak detector is sitting there running. Okay, and whenever it starts to speed up, I know that I have a leak and I may have a problem, and I need to address that right away. Okay, so I'm going to constantly monitor for a flammable environment. That's why I like that leak detector, because you get a lot of people, the ticking drives them crazy. But I've done it for so long and used it for so long that the ticking is just another thing that I ignore until it gets bad, and it starts going faster. Okay, leak detection and line repair. So I'm going to purge the gases to an exterior environment. I can tell you right now that what I recommend about purge it into a bag. It is much cheaper to go and buy a bag. They have actually had cases, and granted, it's not a lot, but one person is all it takes. If I purge this out a window, okay, and it's not required that I recover it, so I just purge it out the window. As a matter of fact, Vulcan used to have I think it was a 30-foot hose that you ran out the window. It had a little end on it, and then you put that in there, and then you just purge the gas out. Well, they had a lady that was, and again, like I said, this is not every time, but you have to remember this is a flammable refrigerant. So this lady was out there smoking and caused the ignition because of her cigarette. So just got to be super careful. That's the reason I don't purge the gas to the outside. I purge it into a bag. I'm trying to be as careful as I can. Okay. Do not use external heating devices to defrost. What in the world are we talking about with an external heating? Well, the famous one is the old hair dryer or the heat gun. Everybody used to have a hair dryer or a heat gun. I have gone away. I refuse to use my heat gun to do anything except to melt we'll talk about it at the end, a patch that I'm going to try to keep insulated so that it doesn't, if I have two unlike metals, and if those two metals, I try to insulate around it using a what am I looking for? A little piece of tubing, plastic, little shrink wrap tubing. That's the only thing that I use my heating devices for. If I have R600, I have to be very careful. I'm going to make sure that if I'm doing that, I'm going to have my fan blowing so that I do not have any issues. Okay. One of the other things, we don't use compressed air or oxygen for us to flush it. I've never used compressed air or oxygen. I've always used a whole container of nitrogen. That was the way that I was taught, and that's the way that I like. Oxygen, if you buy oxygen, that's way too expensive. Compressed air, you could use that, but it would take so much compressed air. Then we've got red paint marks. You got to put those on every time you repair something into the system. There has to be a red paint mark on the access fittings. And then you have to always, just like it is with any other refrigerator, you have to remove any piercing valves. Okay. Some of the stuff, the LokRing fluoresces a blue-green under the UV lights. Common refrigerator dyes, they highlight as a bright yellow if I'm got my little UV light. And then my environmental conditions, the lights have to be off, and I'm using my UV light. Okay, so charging or replacing our refrigerant. So I'm going to match my refrigerant type and charge to the label plate. We already talked about where am I going to find that. That is located in the model serial plate. That tells me how much I should move. Okay. Then I'm going to repair all the electrical faults, secure the power, and discharge all the capacitors before I service anything. Okay. I have to make sure that if I'm in the kitchen, I've got to make sure that the dryer and if I have like an electric gas dryer or an electric dryer, that can't be on. Using my cooktop, can't use that. You got to be protective of yourself and everything around you. Okay. You got to make sure that the system remains grounded. How do I do that? You use a grounding strap. Okay. I always kept a grounding strap in the truck. As a matter of fact, whenever I worked on microwaves, I always had grounded myself so that I didn't have any issues. So that was with a microwave. So our lines are not exposed to corrosive materials. If I have a steel and aluminum connection, I'm going to try to insulate around that. Renew seals and sealing materials. I'm going to do that. Okay. Once I do that, I'm going to maintain my ventilation. I'm going to make sure that I am properly grounded. Okay. That this unit is grounded also. I'm going to verify that venting is allowed. So if I have R32 or R452, those are HFCs. So those are, you got to recover those. Once again, I've got to look at the model serial plate. That's the only way that I know what's in it. Although in most of these, if I have a R600, it states R600 on the back of the refrigerator. Compatible hoses, and they've got to be at the correct length. Okay. Then I want a temporary vessel for release. Like I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to vent it into a bag, and that's what they're talking about. Okay. My safety labels have to be intact. If you look right here is the one for the other triangular warning that has to be on the unit itself. Then of course I'm going to mark my process tubes. I'm going to install the ventilation features. I'm going to make sure those are intact. The compressor oil may still contain a residual refrigerant. 0 psi does not mean zero refrigerant. If I could teach everybody this fact about R600, that would be the best thing. Okay, 0 psi does not mean zero refrigerant. One of the things is if I'm replacing the compressor oil itself can retain up to 30 to 40% of the charge just because it has mixed and it has congealed together. So you've got to be careful whenever I'm doing this. So if that's why I say no torches. Okay. I'm not gonna risk popping the suction line or the discharge line and it goes boom, because the compressor retains oil. The oil in the compressor retains particles of R600. So just remember that. Please be careful with that. Okay, here's the kit. there's the hose that I was talking about. I think it's 30 feet. They have since kind of stopped using that. They give you a hose that you can put into a bag. You can buy the bags at Encompass. They have the bags, or you can find, that's the best place to get them is like Encompass. And these bags are not old, not new. Okay, they've been around since the late 80s. We used to have, whenever I was doing refrigerators in my prime, I had a bag because I didn't want to haul in all that stuff. So what I would do is I would do maybe 2 or 3 refrigerators in a day. So I would drop it into the bag. At the end of the day, I had my recovery equipment at the house. I would go home, pop a cold Coke, and evacuate the bag. Okay, so you just got to be careful. I always am going to do that. I'm always going to hold and put everything into a bag. Okay, so what comes into my LokRing kit? I have a compact digital scale. I have a low pressure and a high pressure manifold gauges. I have the R600 extraction valve. I have liquid extraction discs. I have ball valves and tees. I have the valve core depressors, and then I have hoses for my low pressure and high pressure manifold gauge. Okay, that's what comes in this recovery kit. Okay. So we're going to perform a safety check, make sure that I don't have any leaks from the very beginning. We're going to monitor our recovery with the leak detector just to make sure that don't have any gas escaping. If I feel like if my wow, I just lost my whole train of thought. If I actually my leak detector starts to go off, I'm going to stop what I'm doing, find out where that leak is coming from, and I'm going to fix that. Okay. That's why I always monitor with a leak detector. Okay. I'm going to run the refrigerator for 5 minutes to warm the oil up. That helps to move some of the oil out. We had already talked about that the oil in the compressor will retain some of the refrigerant. So you got to be careful with that. We're going to install a suction gauge manifold. Okay. I'm going to install the discharge hose piercing pliers. I'm going to route weighted in outside and pierce the dryer. Okay. You have to be careful whenever I'm piercing the dryer. If I do it and I do it on the bottom, I run the risk of the incandescent beads ended up clogging everything up. So I've got to do it up high so that it's at an angle and I can suck it out through there. All right. So then we're going to pinch off the capillary tube after we're done. I'm going to confirm that the gas is being discharged. I'm going to start the unit to monitor suction pressure if it's installed. Then I achieve the minimum of the stable atmosphere, unplug the unit, remove both flyers, and then perform the service. Okay. Then the next thing I'm going to safety check and I'm going to monitor everything, connect the system. Connection to the system is the same. I'm going to confirm the gas is being discharged, passive recovery only, no external heating source. We've already talked about that. And close all the open ports for transporting. Then I'm going to connection to both sides is required. I have a passive discharge and an assisted discharge, and then a passive discharge, and then I repeat it. So I'm just trying to get rid of any trapped refrigerant. Okay. This is the way that I'm going to load everything in. Okay. You can see your low pressure side, your high pressure side. Then you just follow everything back. It shows you exactly where my vacuum pump goes. Once again, this has to be a brushless vacuum pump. Okay. Then I have to decide, am I gonna charge with liquid or am I gonna charge with vapor? So if I'm gonna charge with liquid, of course, I'm gonna charge on the high side. If I charge with vapor, I'm gonna charge on the low side, just like it's been for the last 100 years. Okay. But if I try to charge liquid on the low side, I will end up warping the valves to the compressor, and now I have to do it again. So this kit, this comes with the kit. Okay, I'm going to back it out a couple of three of these, maybe. See it right there? That is that instruction thing right there on the right side. That is this diagram. This diagram is what that is. This is just a picture of that. It's bigger so that I can see, so that I can make sure that I have everything hooked up properly. Okay. So once I do all of this, I'm going to warm up my vacuum pump. I'm going to use the extraction adapter valve. It's going to remain closed. I'm going to open all the remaining valves. I'm going to record the lowest vacuum reading, which should be 29, minus 29. So we're going to perform a leak check by isolating the vacuum pump and then the vacuum pump anti-siphon device. Once I do that, I'm going to open the valve core depressors. I'm going to conduct the evacuation until a minimum of 29.9 HGs of vacuum is maintained. Isolate the vacuum pump. Monitor for a pressure rise. If none, the system is ready to charge. Now, what I do then is if I have over 40 grams, I have to charge the liquid side. This gets back to where I was talking about. You cannot charge liquid on the low side. It will warp the valves. Not only will it warp the valves, but you'll take out your low side manifold gauge. Okay, so I'm going to close the high side valve if it's this is for using. Remember, this is for systems over 40 grams. I'm going to close the high side manifold gauge if it's connected. Close the ball valve to the extraction adapter. The ball valve to the vacuum pump remains closed. Okay, I'm going to place the bottle on the scale, tear it to 0. I'm going to open the extractor on the bottle. Do not move the bottle at this point, whether I'm charging a high side or low side. Okay, I cannot move my bottle. If I do, I've screwed up my weight scale. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to open the ball valve. I'm going to fill half the charge, energize the compressor, then cycle the ball valve until I get the correct charge into the unit. Then I'm going to close the extraction valve. I'm going to open the ball valve once the less than 0 PSI is reached. Then I'm going to close the low side manifold gauge. Okay. Once again, same thing for if I'm charging on the liquid side. Okay. Not recommended for anything under 40 grams. I'm going to close the high pressure manifold gauge, close the ball valve. I'm going to let the ball valve to the vacuum pump will remain closed. I'm going to install the liquid extraction disc. Okay. That means I've got my unit, and I'm going to turn this upside down so that I get a liquid coming out, just like you used to do with the 134A, and you flipped your tank onto the top. Okay, same thing. Okay, I'm going to place the bottle on the scale. Once again, I'm going to tear it to 0. Then I'm going to open the extraction valve. I'm going to pre-charge to the ball valve. Then I'm going to open the ball valve to fill at least half a charge, and then I'm going to close the valve. Okay. Then cycle the ball valve rapidly until I get it fully charged. Close the extraction valve, and then I'm going to open the ball valve. Wait 1 minute. Start the compressor whenever once less than 0 PSI reached. Then I'm going to close the manifolds, the low side manifold. Okay. Then once I'm doing this, how am I going to remove it? I'm going to verify the compressor's running. I'm going to crack the valve core depressor at the dryer. Okay. Open the high pressure manifold valve. Slowly open the low pressure manifold valve until both gauges read the same pressures. Then I'm going to close and remove the valve core depressors once I've done all of that. Okay. Once I have removed the valve core depressor and removed it, I'm going to apply lock prep to the threads, any threads that are left there. Like if I have the LokRing. Actually, they have a excuse me, they have a filter dryer. LokRing has their own filter dryer. And then this is what I'm going to apply the threads to so that I can lock it down. If I want a more permanent seal, I can actually crimp it right close to the Schrader valve. So you have to be careful whenever I'm doing that, because you can cause the where you crimped, you can cause a small leak right there. Once I do that, I'm going to apply red paint to the service port tubing. This is important. You have got to do this. One of the guys was jokingly and said that he used his wife's red fingernail paint. I thought that was a pretty good idea. You can usually find fingernail paint pretty cheap, and it doesn't make a big mess like it does if I'm trying to use a spray can. Okay. If anybody has any information, go to the www.vulcan.com. Okay, that will I can find all kinds of things with that system. Okay, so does anybody have any questions right now? Okay, looks like we don't have any questions. So one of the things that you really have to be careful of is my pre-assembly tool. Okay, this pre-assembly tool is great if I have a like I'm gonna do 2 or 3 connections right there together. I can use this pre-assembly tool to fix all of those. One of the other things that I like to talk about is these LRSZ tubing pliers. Okay, so I like these tubing pliers. They help me to they don't have my old set of tubing cutters. I had to turn 360 degrees. These don't require that kind of it only requires 120 degrees instead of 360. So how do I do this? I'm just going to mark the tube that I need. Granted, this is okay. This is a vise. This is not a real world thing, but this is the way that you would use it in any instance. I'm going to line the tubing cutter to my mark. Then I'm going to place my free hand along the side of the cutter. I'm going to use my fingers to maintain the cutter position, and I'm going to apply a moderate pressure, rotating the cutter at least 120 degrees. Okay. If I can get all the way around, go ahead and get all the way around. But the nice thing about these pliers is I can do it all from 120 degree range. Okay. So one thing that you have to be so careful of with these pliers are expensive. Okay. If I'm not careful, I can chip the wheel because I put too much pressure on them. The last time that I did a class in Dallas, Texas, they sent me the LokRing kit. Didn't realize it whenever I was laying everything out for the class. One was okay, and then my other kit was somebody that they had given the class to in Lawrenceville used way too much pressure and actually chipped the wheel on it. So what happens if I chip that wheel? I get a wobble. It doesn't work right. So I end up having to replace it. That's not a fun thing. You have to be very careful whenever I'm doing it. I will show you later on how you actually replace that wheel. Okay. So I only use moderate pressure. One of the other things is if I try to use too much pressure, it not only does it chip the wheel, it can actually close that. If as small as the tubing is, it can actually close that down and restrict the tubing size. If I use too little pressure, it actually will try to walk up the side of the unit. That's why you keep your one hand on it, so that you can don't let you're not able to let the tubing cutter move. So if you look right here, they're using one finger. Okay, I'm a 3-finger guy. I grab 3 fingers on it, and I make sure that my thumb is pressed right up against the unit itself, wherever I'm cutting. So I maintain the perpendicular position to the tube. Do not apply side torque. That's where it walks. Use the free hand as a guide, and then don't apply excessive pressure. This right here is a picture of it. The one that I got this would have been an exact picture of what I got. Okay. So the broken and chipped wheels are caused by the operator error, and they're not covered under warranty. And they are not cheap. So you need to make sure that you're using this several times before you actually try to go out and get and try work on something. That's the one thing that I tell everybody. If I'm new to this, which I was whenever I went to the class to get certified. So I'm going to tell you this. I actually, the first time that I went for my certification, I had never had anything to do with Vulcan LokRing. Okay. I knew about R600 and it was coming, and how was I going to do it? And Vulcan came out and said, hey, we're teaching a class. Actually, Reggie Williams, came to me and said, hey, they're teaching Vulcan LokRing. I want you to get certified. I said, sounds like a plan. I wondered what I was going to do to take care of R600. So he sent me down to the class. Encompass paid for it, including my lodging and everything else. They paid for it. I went down there and I didn't pass. So I was like, oh my God, I'm the instructor. I have 40 years of experience. How can I not pass? Well, it's pretty simple. I didn't do the proper things to get certified. I did, and whenever I got done and I didn't pass, I got with Reggie and I said, hey, listen, I need you to send me a LokRing kit, and the tubing cutters, and you need to give me about a month to 6 weeks, and then sign me up for the class again, and I'll pay for it. Okay. So that's what happened. He sent me the LokRing kit. I sat and worked on the LokRing kit, and used that here. And whenever that 6 weeks came, it was funny because the instructor, who's no longer there either, he was like, you knew that so well, you were actually teaching other students. And I said, well, that's my job. I said, and I'm not going to tell you any stories. I was embarrassed. I really was embarrassed that I didn't pass. I said, I'm way too experienced not to have passed this thing. But it all goes down to, hey, I'm doing something new, and I need to know exactly what I'm doing so that I can go and teach others. So just remember that don't be ashamed if something doesn't work and you don't get it done. So here's what I had to do whenever I found that chip in that. Okay. Number one, I have got to be super careful. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to order these replacement wheels. I'm going to look at my pins to make sure that I don't need a new pin, because they don't come, they don't have pins in the replacement wheels because you don't normally need them. Okay. So I'm going to order these pins. Whenever I do that, I am going to drive the retaining pins out from the non-logo side. Okay, what do you mean non-logo side, Mitch? Oops, I went the wrong way. If you look at this right here, that's your logo on the left-hand side. Now, if I look on the right side, I see nothing right there. So that is my non-logo side. So this is where I'm going to drive the pins out, is from this side right here. Okay. Retaining pin holes are tapered. Driving the pins out incorrectly will destroy the tool, and that means I've just bought something I can't eat, is what my grandfather used to tell me. So I'm going to drive the pins just far enough out to remove the cutting wheel. Then I'm going to remove and replace the cutting wheel. After I do that, I'm going to center the new wheel with the pinhole. I'm going to drive the pins back in from the logo side. Once again, the logo side was that side that had the logo actually on it. You can tell right here, you can't tell that. The pin should not be driven flush. And then I'm going to spin the wheel to actually verify that I've done it right. So I had to do this, or actually since we were doing it, I had a technician do it. I had done this before. And we did that so that they knew how to replace it, because whenever I was there, they bought both the this and the installation kit. Okay. So once again, logo side with the pins, you see it right there. And then non-logo side, they're recessed. So I'm ready to go. Okay. If I have any other questions, you can go to this www.vulcan.com. There's a lot of information out there on this website. Okay. So here we're gonna take just a second right here. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. So what is contained in this at the site? Okay. So let me come right here. That's not what I want. I'm going to come right here and say share screen. Okay. Here's my Vulcan group. Okay. So here's, whenever I type in www.vulcan.com, this is what comes up. First thing I have to do is accept that their privacy. Okay. So you agree to that. Then I come over here and I go to downloads. Okay. Once again, I have to accept it. Okay. So these are the downloads that I have. Okay. Refrigeration and air conditioning. Okay. So I can go to my downloads and it will show me my downloads that I can get. I come right here. Let's see, refrigeration and air conditioning, installation, repair of refrigeration appliances. Okay. Accessories, all products. Now it will come up with these right here. There's my crimping tools. This is the mat. Okay. The scrubbing brush. This is the piercing pliers. Come down. Here's whatever you do, don't use this. This BP Don't use one of those. That's the worst leaking thing you'll ever find. I'm surprised anybody's got any. If you want, you can order and excuse me. Encompass has all of these in stock, or they're supposed to all have them in stock. The other thing is this tubing cutter right here for capillary tubes, the CTP1. That's a good thing to use. I was taught so that all I had used was a mill bastard file and done it at a 45-degree angle. But this makes everything nice and neat and clean. So that's not a bad thing to have. As I come down, here are your LR SB pliers for tubing cutters. You can keep going down. You can find all this other information. Okay, this is all in products. Let's see. Service. I can come down. I can go and find all information that I need. Information on Vulcan itself, branches, where they are, downloads. Once again, we went through, so I can go down to the download. I can look everything that I need. So if you have any questions, go to www.vulcan.com. Okay. All right, everybody. If anybody has any questions, now is the time. Please let me know if you have any questions. Just so you know, my information is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Text me if you need anything. If you have any questions about the upcoming events that are live, that you actually go to the class instead of a virtual class like we have today, you can go ahead and text me there, and I'll get you all the information that you need. You will have to go back to the Encompass training site and sign up for those. If you do it today, you can still do it for tomorrow. There's a class that's going to be tomorrow that's down in Davie, Florida. So just make sure that you let me know. Okay. I have my phone number right there. Like I said, if you need me, call me, text me first. My email is right there. You can just drop me an email. Usually that's the best way to check it, because some of the times if I'm not right at my truck, I don't have my phone with me. I found that is a distraction to a customer, so I try not to keep my phone with me unless I know something is going to happen. Okay, so we've reached the end of the class. I do want to ask you to please hold off from leaving the class. Give another minute and a half and take a look at this. This actually shows some of the information that you need to know about Encompass and their supply. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.